Today, you'll learn that being a Muto is not easy, and being born into this species means that you'll probably have a less than 1% chance of making it out alive. And even after you survive, you'll probably be condemned to suffer a horrible death. In the Monsterverse, perhaps the most invasive species in any biome would be the Mutos. As a result, being born into the society of death would mean that you're hardwired to destroy, kill, and repeat. Which means that you'll make a lot of enemies throughout your lifetime, things that would want to kill you even from birth. So to better understand your arduous time on Earth, let us introduce you to the Muto Life Cycle. In this journey, you can either be born a male Muto or a female Muto. If you are unfortunate to be born a male Muto, then you'll soon find out that your time on Earth will probably be short. On the contrary, being born a female Muto opens the possibility for you to increase rank and potentially turn into one of the most powerful Titans on the planet. Your chances of making it this far are very low. But to begin, let us introduce you to the Muto Prime. Stage 1, the first generation. All Muto life cycles begin with this Titan, Muto Prime or Titanus Jinshin Mushi. This is the most powerful iteration of all Muto specimens. If you're lucky and born into the right gender, you may just become one of these. Small chance. Perhaps the most important thing to note about these Muto Prime specimens, or all Muto types, is that they evolved over millions of years to counter a certain type of Titan, Godzillas. But not only that, these Mutos evolved to use these as breeding incubators. That's right, Muto Prime specimens will jumpstart the life cycle after they successfully defeat a Godzilla specimen, subjugating it and implanting 2 eggs with its ovipositors. These are tipped with sensors that search for atomic-rich body organs, searching for the best place to implant the eggs. This Godzilla isn't dead, yet, but it will stay alive until these things absorb all of its atomic energy, leading us to Stage 2, Spore Maturity. So, while our host is literally suffering a slow, excruciating death, these 2 Muto offspring are enjoying a plethora of nourishment necessary to hatch. Eventually, this host, which in this case happens to be a Godzilla, will eventually succumb to this energy depletion, slowly fading away as these 2 spores absorb what remains of the radiation found within this Godzilla. After these things are ready, the male Muto will hatch first. Why? Well, if we compare both adult male and female Mutos, we'll notice that there is some clear sexual dimorphism between the 2. One has wings, and one doesn't, meaning that the male Muto in this case must go through some form of metamorphosis before it develops its wings. We aren't sure what its larval state looks like, but we do know that as soon as this male hatches, its larval form will immediately seek sources of atomic energy and then return to a cocoon state to further develop. Meanwhile, the female will continue to develop in its encasing, waiting for the male to develop wings. How do we know this? Back in the film Godzilla, we witnessed how just one of these Mutos hatched. The spore containing the female was then transported to Nevada, where it matured to its adult form inside a huge waste depository. Stage 3, the hatching. The time has now come for this Muto pair to reveal themselves and wreak havoc. After the male Muto hatches, it will emit pulses that are picked up by its female counterpart, signaling that he's now ready for business. How do these 2 automatically know what to do as soon as they're born? Well, again, the entire Muto classification is hardwired to behave a certain way. Literally everything they do is led by an instinctive compass with only one objective: terraforming the Earth to their liking. These 2 are the ones responsible for making sure this happens. The first step in this entire process has already been done. They're successfully hatched, and now the next step is making sure they find each other. Stage 4, mating. In order to begin the mating process, the male has to first seek out the female Muto. But is Mr. Muto gonna pull up to the female empty-handed? Absolutely not! This guy will come bearing gifts. That's right, it is no coincidence that this male Muto is given wings during its development. This guy's role in bringing forth the next generation of Mutos is to effectively find the female as quickly as possible. But not only that, he's also tasked with rapidly finding radioactive materials in order to feed their offspring. This shows the female that he's up to the task of keeping her and the little ones fed. Once the female receives the first dose of radiation from the male Muto, they will proceed to find a suitable place to nest. It is here where they will begin the terraforming of this planet. But how exactly will this be done? And what creatures carry about this act of destruction? If you enjoy watching Goji Center and would like to support the channel so we can make more epic content, fights, and see more carnage, please take a moment to go check out our merch store, where we will gear you up with epic Goji merch, cool posters, all types of phone cases, and more. Links below in the description. If you don't, that's cool. You can at least subscribe, dude. Alright, back to the episode. Stage 5, the Terraformation of Earth. If you've been paying attention, you'll realize that during the events of 2014, these two Mutos never made it past Stage 4. From now on, we will discuss what would have happened if Godzilla perished at the hands of this Muto pair and contributed to the nourishment of this next generation of Mutos. Keep in mind that this female can carry hundreds of these smaller Mutos. Once setting up her nest, the parents will be tasked with providing constant sources of radiation for their offspring, whether it comes in the form of nuclear warheads or a dead Titan. The best Titan to absorb radiation from would have been a Godzilla. Again, we have to bring up the fact that all Mutos had certain adaptations that helped them counter Gojiras. One ability in particular, known as the EMP, would be used to snuff out some of the destructive effects of a Gojira atomic breath. Additionally, this Muto pair was equipped with an exoskeleton that could more or less show some resistance towards the already weakened atomic breath, and very sharp, pointy-tipped limbs that could pierce a Gojira's thick hide. But what about the offspring? Will they look identical to their parents? This is actually an unknown fact about the Mutos, but we'd like to guess that they'll look somewhat similar to their parents and around the same size. It is also unclear whether or not these so-called subspecies could breed amongst themselves, although there are depictions of both male and females making up the ranks of this new generation. Once these hatch and mature, their hardwired task will be to travel throughout the continent, destroying everything in their path and killing any inhabitants that get in the way. But being born into this generation of Mutos will turn out to be the ultimate nightmare. Stage 6, Civil War. Immediately after the Earth is terraformed into what the Mutos now consider a perfect world, there's one final step in completing the full circle, bringing forth the next Muto Prime. This isn't a democracy where everyone votes for the next queen, or monarchy where there is already a set leader. No, this is now a fight to the death. Every Muto for itself, with one winner, one Muto Prime. Admittedly, all we know about this stage is from a theory developed by Dr. Emma Russell, which suggests that at some point, all existing Mutos will eventually turn on each other, until the strongest specimens remain, with one female eventually taking hold of the title of Muto Prime. But there is one little loophole in this theory. If all female Mutos have to kill each other, where did this one come from? In the Monsterverse timeline, this particular Titan, also known as a Queen Muto, showed up after Godzilla killed the last remaining Muto Prime. So where do these fit into the Muto Life Cycle? And why do they look different from the regular female Muto? It was mentioned by Michael Doherty that this Queen Muto's ridges are more or less like status symbols. Actions such as winning in combat or completing mating rituals may have triggered the development of these ridges, which makes us believe that these could only be attained by the generations of Mutos that were directly birthed by the Muto Prime. But that's just a theory. This particular Muto probably survived this said civil war between all female Mutos, but was not active or strong enough to morph into the next Muto Prime, leaving that to another female who successfully fended off the rest. And finally, we need to discuss what happened to the rest of these dudes, the males. Another theory is that after they complete their paternal duties, the females would then proceed to devour the male specimens, similar to real-life mantises. After they successfully breed, the female will then proceed to kill and eat the male partner. This might explain why there aren't any males left during this stage of the Muto cycle. After there is only one or a few female Mutos left, only one will have the privilege to evolve into the next Muto Prime. Stage 7, Titanus Jinshin Mushi. The cycle reaches full circle at this stage. After a long series of bloody battles with other female Mutos, this particular female's body begins to enter a state of dormancy and likely develops another cocoon. Her wounds will now begin to heal, and her limbs will morph into thicker and more powerful weapons. Her armor will become more scaly, razor-sharp spikes will develop along her spine, and she now will be equipped with ovipositors with tips strong enough to pierce thick Gojira hides. After some time, this animal will now hatch for the last time. This is now a Muto Prime. There's a catch to this, however. There can only be one of these lurking about, meaning that if this Muto successfully triggers the next life cycle and only one female subspecimen remained, this female wouldn't be able to turn into a Muto Prime until this one died. So, back to this Muto. Why didn't this particular queen turn into the next Muto Prime after Godzilla killed the current one? We aren't very sure about this one, but here's some plausible reasons. 1. Maybe there was another Queen Muto somewhere else on the planet, and she turned into the next Prime. Or 2. Perhaps her body was simply not capable of morphing into the next stage. Maybe it tried, but went through something called pupation failure. This can be caused by several reasons, such as genetic abnormalities, injuries to critical organs, malnutrition, etc. In the real world, this sometimes actually happens to some caterpillars, and sadly, they never get to turn into moths or butterflies. As we can see, apart from being the best fighter to become a Muto Prime, you also have to be really careful. If not, then you'll never get to develop into the next Muto Prime, even if you're the last one standing. Maybe that's why there isn't another Muto Prime lurking about, at least that we know of. Do you think there is another one out there that Godzilla will encounter in the future? Will we see another Muto cataclysm happen again? Make sure you subscribe to not miss the next episode discussing kaiju, dinosaurs, and battle face-offs. Special thanks to Dangerville for providing this epic Muto footage. If you want to see their documentary, check out the link in the description. Subscribe and tell them Goji sent you.